Okay, so I think I've completed this widget project. I'm going to go through a quick little review of everything I've done and give you my opinion on the processes that I use to get to where I'm going. So we started out with the drawing, made corrections to the drawing where it was needed. Now you got to realize the part I made is about half the size of what's on here. That's why all the dimensions have been changed. So we started out, we had a wood pattern like so, mounted on a board, match plate if you prefer, fully gated, and that included one core box with one out of there, a loose piece, and I was able to make a casting with it. So in the process of doing that, I came up with the casting. Looks like so. Gating is still attached to this one. Marks on here is how I'd go about inspecting the casting to verify that the casting was good. 3 points on datum A. Center of this boss would be datum C and B1. Centered between these, the midpoint between each side here would be B2. So we stop the plane from rotating here. We stop the rotation about this axis here because the axis system is in the center of this boss. And we locate it with C1 still being the center. So that all works. From there, we went to and got a finished casting. Completely machined. Same thing. If I had to inspect this part, now I'd use the machine side as datum A. I'd use the center of this hole as B1 and C1, and the midpoint between these two surfaces here as B2. And I am able to check this hole and the hole through the center here. So that verifies that the casting would be machined properly. But in the process of doing this whole project, I made the wood pattern. That's where I got my castings from. I made 2 patterns like this. First one I just stuck with the standard settings on my 3D printer. And this, I think I mentioned in another video, was a mistake. I'm using constraint-based software, and I had it this height here constrained to the wrong location, and I put too little machining on here. I was short a millimeter, so I had to add a millimeter here when I 3D printed it. The first one of these I made that was also blue, I did a self-destruction test on it, and it failed. You might have got one casting off it, as long as you didn't beat it up too bad. This one has another problem on the back side I'll get to in just a second. So that was 2. So this was the final one on that. I got the pattern. What I did with this is I increased the number of shells, and I increased the top and bottom layers. I now got basically a pattern that I think would hold up to a little bit of foundry use. I increased the infill in here to make it a little stronger, and I added these holes in here. So I got enough material around each one of those so I can put a riser here and here if I choose to use an open riser, which I should have done on the casting I got. And then I can use these holes to draw the part out of the sand if it's a loose pattern. Otherwise it should be mounted. And in that process I also made a core box. Difference between the core boxes, this one comes apart this way, and this one comes apart with the loose piece here. It comes out that way. Each way works. I prefer this method. If you put the pattern in storage, you can tack down a block of wood over this, keep the loose piece in there. Most times when this is put in storage, it's put in just like that and pieces could be lost, especially on a small part. But it's a small foundry what I got here, if you want to call it a foundry, so that doesn't really matter. Now when we get to the castings, let's see. No, actually that's about it. That's the whole process. Now you're talking, if you happen to believe like I do, time is money. This whole project here, if I didn't have to make videos, this whole project with the core box mounted and gated is about a 12-hour job maximum. Okay, I've got, ignoring the rest of the tests I did, just this part here, designing the pattern, getting the core box, printing the part. I got better than 12 hours designing the part and core box on the computer. Each one of these took almost 8 hours to print, but looking at the way the part's printed, this one printed with the layers going this way, so this will draw out pretty easy, because if you hear it, that's roughness. You can't have that roughness coming up a vertical wall. If you do, it's not going to draw out of the sand very well, if at all, without tearing it up. This part was, you know, printed like that, so I got the same problem here. I got basically a whole series of undercuts all the way through it. So this would all have to be cleaned up, painted, sealed, and made sure I got a smooth surface to draw it out, because I got very little draft here. I got less than a millimeter draft here on these sides, and that's the same on the wood pattern too. So it depends on how you feel about printed patterns. Yeah, in some cases they work, in a lot of cases they're very good. And with the new technology that's out there, if you're in an industrial environment, they're extremely good. But if you're the backyard metal caster and want a quick and easy way to do things, actually learning how to build a simple wood pattern, this is a simple pattern, simple wood pattern like so. It doesn't take that long, it's easier to do. I prefer all my patterns mounted to a match plate, and I put a small fillet around the whole thing all the way through. I used obviously a blind riser here, open riser there, and the mistake with doing it that way, I'll show you in just a second here, is with this part I could maybe get it to clean up, but I got to shrink right in here. Part of that is I didn't put a big enough fillet here, so what I needed to do is either put a bigger fillet in here, which I did to get the other casting. I brought it out almost to the edge of the casting here, and just a bigger fillet. What would have been better is an open riser, and I could probably leave it in the location, or I could do like I said on this one. I could put a riser here and here, and I would have made it with a pad, a neck down riser, so I'd have a pad here and put a neck down riser on it. So that's my views on it. If you like it, say something about it. If you got any questions for me, please feel free to ask them. That's the whole point of this channel, is put what I do out there and tell you why I do it the way I do, and we'll go from there. So you guys have a good day, and I will talk at you later, and this is a good way to go. Keep it in mind and practice. We'll get into tools at a different time, so talk to you then. Goodbye. I was gonna say, there's one thing I forgot. Once you get a casting done, painting it hides a whole lot of imperfections, makes the whole thing work and look good.